And so I call upon you, all of you, that on November the 11th, you come to Whitehall and you stand by the Cenotaph and you block the route of the Hamas supporters from marching past the Cenotaph. You get your friends to come, your family to come, all of you who are veterans, who disagree with Hamas, come to Whitehall to stop that march walking past the Cenotaph. Hamas, there you go. You're on camera. Let's hope that gets handed over to the police. Let's stick it up on Twitter. Let's make her famous. And then, God willing, the police will arrest her and she will spend 7 years in prison. Because that is how we should treat. Was this camera rolling?
No.
Oh, bro, you should have been here.
But I got the...
Did you get a face?
Are you sure? I got the face.
Good. That is how we need to deal with these Islamists. When they reveal themselves to you, capture them on film, report them to HR, report them to the police, get them sacked from their jobs, get them kicked out of the country. Organise yourselves to resist these Islamists. Notice how she said your day was coming. Why were you not offended? Why were you not enraged? Why were you not angry to hear that witch speak her poison in your country? To speak her support for the Islamists? Why were you cowardly in the face of her disgusting threats? Ladies and gentlemen, you must recognise that you have been lulled into a sleep by the media, by your politicians who lie to you constantly. These marches have been characterised by anti-Semitism. The last time that London saw anti-Semitic marches down the streets of London were by Mosley's fascists in the 1920s and 1930s. And the anti-fascists and the police came out to fight against these fascists because of their anti-Semitism. Why have we allowed anti-Semitic marchers through the streets of London unopposed, unchallenged by anyone? I'll tell you why. Because our society has been weakened by liberalism, by left-wing politics, by the progressives who teach you a mantra about tolerance and about inclusivity and about multiculturalism. And through this mantra, they have switched off your courage, your sense of right and wrong. These marches have been characterised by violence, physical attacks against police, physical attacks against those who disagree with them. These marches have been characterised by harassment of those flying the British flag. In your country, people flying the British flag have been accused of racism by the police, who allowed Islamist flags to be flown in London without challenge or consequence. Anyone who would like to ask a question or make a point who hasn't interrupted me, now's your chance. If you want to ask a question or make a point.
Okay, so I think, do you think Israel is an apartheid state by any chance?
So, ladies and gentlemen, do I believe that Israel is an apartheid state? No. Arab Christians and Arab Muslims have the same rights as Israeli citizens to vote, to be judges in the legal system, to be members of Parliament, and I believe at this very moment in time it is an Arab judge who will pass judgment on whether Benjamin Netanyahu is a corrupt politician. I may be wrong on that. Feel free to fact check me. I'm going off something that I vaguely remember from the past. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, is that there is not a single Jewish citizen in Gaza. Not one. And across the Islamic world, Christians are treated as second-class citizens. In a number of Muslim countries, you cannot even be a passport-carrying citizen and a Christian in these countries, like Saudi Arabia, like Qatar, where 13% of the population live as second-class citizens precisely because they're Christians in a Muslim majority country. We should start to challenge these Islamic apartheid governments, and we should call them out for their injustices. Everybody wants to tell you that we should oppose Israel's apartheid system, but they are totally silent about the Islamic apartheid systems, where Christians are persecuted, like in North Sudan, like in Iran, like in Pakistan, like in Syria, like in Iraq, like in Egypt, like in Yemen, like in Indonesia, like in Malaysia, and by Hamas, like in Gaza, where Islamist militants, after they overthrew Fatah, desecrated churches, a Christian for handing out Bibles, bombed a Christian library, and tried to forbid Muslims from celebrating Christmas with Christians, ladies and gentlemen. So, I'm going to press on and then I'll take another point. Now, there has been released on Twitter this idea that the flags of the Cenotaph were removed because of the threat of an Islamist desecration of this civic statue. That's a lie. It's a lie. It's not true. The Cenotaph is cleaned before November the 11th in preparation for Armistice Day. However, I want to make it clear that all of us who are opposed to Hamas marching down past the Cenotaph on Armistice Day should demand that the police use the fullness of their powers to prevent the march past the Cenotaph. Learn your democratic rights to demand appropriate policing for these things. Any questions or comments by someone who doesn't interrupt me, on the topic?
Ukrainian Nazi Christians, what do you say about that?
Going once?
Nothing. You've got nothing to say because you're an ignoramus.
If you had not been so pig ignorant, I would have answered that.
Yeah, well, you said there's nothing.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
Nazis, you say there's nothing.
ladies and gentlemen,
They don't want to just wipe Jews off there, so there's nothing in common, yeah? You say there's nothing in common. Who's the idiot?
I want to point out that thousands of people should come out to prevent the Hamas march from walking past the Cenotaph. Thousands of people came out when the statue of Winston Churchill was defaced to protest against the vandalism of a British war hero. Well, the Cenotaph, ladies and gentlemen, is a statue in honour of the families, the grandparents, the great-grandparents, the fathers, the uncles, the mothers, the sisters, the brothers of every British family who lost people in World War I and World War II and every war since those two wars. It remembers their sacrifice. It is a monument to our families, ladies and gentlemen. And the idea of an anti-Semitic, Islamist, hate-filled march walking past the Cenotaph on Armistice Day should not be tolerated by anyone in this country who has a decent mind, let me finish, a decent mind or a decent conscience. And so I call upon you, all of you, that on November the 11th, you come to Whitehall and you stand by the Cenotaph and you block the route of the Hamas supporters from marching past the Cenotaph. You get your friends to come, your family to come. All of you who are veterans, come to Whitehall to stop that march walking past the Cenotaph. All of you who disagree with Hamas, come to Whitehall and stop that Cenotaph. What a beautiful thing it will be if thousands of British Jews were there protecting the Cenotaph to show the difference that the Jewish community brings to the UK versus the migrant Muslim community. Ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful thing it will be to see. Ladies and gentlemen, all of you who marched on the veteran marches against the BLM, all of you who marched with the EDL, all of you who have ever marched for any good cause, who want your families to be honoured, come to Whitehall on November the 11th and stop Hamas from marching past the Cenotaph. Any questions or comments from those who haven't interrupted me? This is your chance to ask a question or make a comment.
Please just address, so many Catholics hate Jews as well.
When you stop interrupting, any questions from or comments from people who don't interrupt me? Sorry, can I get that, bro?
Will you address that point?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'll move on to my next point because you still don't understand manners. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you who call yourselves Christians, I want to address Christians and the churches. Think about how feckless and how useless our pastors and our bishops are. These so-called leaders of the church that have zero political ambition for the Christian community, zero political vision for the Christian church. They have never called you to any greater act of Christian solidarity than simply to pray in your churches for persecuted Christians. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you that if all that your pastors and your priests and your bishops and your church leaders have ever done is call you to pray or fill out a petition or give a donation for the persecuted church, that they have failed you. They have failed to give you real discipleship in the Lord and to teach you a genuine Christian political vision. We Christians must be out on the street in our thousands, ladies and gentlemen, to raise a voice for Christians who are being persecuted around the world. This month, November month, is the month about awareness of Christophobia. It's a Christophobia Awareness Month. How many of you knew that? How many of you have even heard of that? We must cultivate political aspirations within the church that meet the needs and the requirements of the body of Christ as we require a political agenda. And that starts with the persecuted church. It starts with our brothers and sisters who are being discriminated against. I am saying to you that you should be more like all of the other groups that protest. That you yourselves should be protesting on the streets to raise awareness about the persecuted church. Any questions or comments by those who have not been interrupting me on any point that I've been speaking? Going once.
I've burnt people at the stake, other Christians at the stake.
I'm only taking questions or comments from those who don't interrupt. Going twice. No, I'm not.
Who the fuck do you think you are, mate? You answer my question.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
You've got nothing to say.